Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we're discussing a 2022 launch that represents the best way to travel with your debethune timepiece. This is the debethune DB25 GMT Starry Varius. 42 millimeters in diameter in grade 5 titanium. It is 13.3 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 49.8 millimeters, and has a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Being 42 millimeters and mostly made of titanium and sapphire, it is very light on the wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. The watch wears beautifully. I could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference, and you can see it is flat enough that it will fit underneath the cuff with a domed bezel. And let's take a look down the barrel so you can see my clearance on each side of the wrist, and then also across the top you can see that the watch is easily worn on an average sized wrist. The strap here is a custom piece. Large rectangular scale alligator leather, matte orange. We have an orange stitch. We have at the edge a sheer cut. This is a large rectangular scale, the good stuff. And then on the bottom, calfskin. No crimping, no gouging. It's a brand new strap. Watch box by Jean Rousseau. Jean Rousseau is the OEM supplier to Debethune as well as FP Journe, and Watchbox does own Debethune, so we often like to co-brand and put a custom Jean Rousseau on the watch if we think that the color combo pops, and the orange and blue definitely does. So the buckle is interesting because at Debethune the buckles match the cases, and whereas the DB27s and 28s have these elaborate open airy buttress-like lugs, here we have a much more conventional watch with a round case and fixed lugs, so we get the streamlined and tapered matching grade 5 titanium Debethune pin buckle. Grade 5 tie is great. Like all titanium, it's hypoallergenic, so if you have a nickel allergy and you react badly to certain steels, this is going to be perfect. It's also lighter than steel, and because it's grade 5, not grade 2, it's also harder and more scratch resistant than most standard 316 and 904L steels. The lugs are fixed, so if you like the look of a traditional watch, if you're coming from FP Journe, Moritz Grossman, perhaps Moser, and you think, well, I'm not ready for a floating lug DB28 or DB27 yet. With the fixed lugs, the round cases, and the solid dials, the DB28 is the place to start. It's not the entry-level model line, that's the 27, but it's definitely the classical line in the collection. So we have these lugs, which are open and airy, but they're fixed. They don't move around, and they don't add width to the case. You can see a little ogival bullet tip, the last styling vestige of the original 2002 DB1 chronograph, the brand's first product. Everything's polished. The flange of the caseback and the flange of the bezel define the mid-case. We have a polished crown with twin row knurling and drilling. And then you can see we have a little bit of a camber or curve to the sapphire. There's a push adjuster on the profile that allows you to adjust the date without moving any of the hands. And then we have a couple of different setting modes. You can see that at center we have our local time. And I can move it forward or backwards when the crown's in the intermediate position, which it is now. And you can see that I'm able to advance the date indicator or jump it backwards as I move east or west across the international date line. Now there's a little globe, actually it's a sun, that represents the second time zone in a 24-hour format, which is why you can see the 24-hour scale of time illustrated within the channel of the second time zone. Now that is a sphere of 1/2 rose gold, 1/2 blued steel, and I'll pull the crown out all the way now and set everything in sync. You could see as it transitions into the bottom part of the dial, which is nighttime. Prior to 6 a.m., night, you see the blued steel. After 6 a.m., daytime. It rotates and shows you the sun. And so we have that 24-hour format independent second time zone that gives you the flexibility to discreetly and elegantly monitor a second time zone. You can see it goes from rose back to blued steel. The hands at center are fired blue titanium, so is the dish at the base of the dial. Fired blue titanium with both gold leaf and small dowels of white gold used to create the image of the cosmos, as with the standard DB25 Starry Varius. Give us our location and time to work with, and we can customize these at the Debethune factory to include the sky over a certain place at a certain time, such as your hometown on the night of the birth of your child. And I say we because, of course, Watchbox owns Debethune Bethune, so while this is a pre-owned watch, we can definitely customize a new order if you feel so inclined. We also have guilloche, as you can see, a lovely rayon or sunburst guilloche cut into the upper dial with a little rose gold sun representing our local star. And debethune makes cases, dials, and movements in-house. So when you pay for a debethune, you're paying for the engineering and the fabrication, not to buy castles and sports cars for the owners. Also important, when you're only making a few dozen examples of even your most popular model each year, suppliers in the industry will not accept an order for 10 cases or 10 dials. So being able to do this in-house means lower volume and greater exclusivity is possible. You can also see the excellent depth of the dial. It's really something, while hiding all of the underlying mechanical works. The mechanical works are visible on the back. We'll start with the aesthetics and then talk about the tech and the spec. This is the in-house DB2507 movement. 2 barrels, manual wind, and then we have some extraordinary styling flourishes. The base plate is capped with a piece of steel that is concave and mirror polished with a diamond paste. You can see the same mirror polish applied to the balance bridge. It's relatively easy to black polish a flat surface, but you can see that this has been rounded and black polished all the way around, exceptionally difficult to do. There's a steel cap on top of the deltoid style barrel bridge, and it has been finished with diamond paste on its outer facets, and then the center has been cut with a lathe to create what debethune calls microlight. It's guilloche, but more progressive and modern than a Breguet style rosette. So that's why it's used on these very forward-looking watches. So you have engine turning and black polish. When you look to the profile, you could see that it has been mirror beveled with an extraordinary radius, difficult to do, and then all of the jewel sinks have been internally beveled. The barrels feature solarization, and you can see that well here. And then the base plate has been media blasted. The triple parachute shock protection system has a steel spring that's been fired blue and polished and then beveled on its edges. We have 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs, and the idea is, yes, to prevent fracturing the balance staff pivot, but also to more rapidly and precisely recenter the pivot in its cup jewel to resume timekeeping. You could see now, speaking of spec, 2 barrels, manual wind, 5-day power reserve. They're self-adjusting barrels. This is patented, so you can't accidentally overwind them. The triple parachute shock protection is patented. We have a patented balance. This is the 2016 version. Denis has at least 10 different balances. Who is Denis? He is the watchmaker, lead engineer, and co-founder at debethune who creates all of what you see here. And every time he creates a balance that is less susceptible to temperature changes, concentrates more mass in the rim, and reduces the impact of aerodynamic drag, he patents it, and he is constantly upgrading. So here we have a wheel made of blued titanium with white gold masses in the rim. There's a hairspring that you can see has an irregular curvature. Well, it's actually 2 pieces bent by hand and then clamped together. This is also patented. The idea being to create the flatness and shock resistance of a flat hairspring, and then the concentric breathing properties in any position of an overcoil. If you have eagle eyes, you may also be able to see that there is a silicon escape wheel that reduces friction and improves chronometry while extending power reserve. The watch doesn't achieve 5-day power reserve with any tricks. It still has a high beat rate. A lot of companies achieve a long power reserve by lowering beat rate. Here it is 4 Hertz, or the industry standard 8 beats per second. And then finally, this gorgeous movement is protected down to 30 meters in this case, and it pivots on 40 joules. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this spectacular DB25 GMT Starry Varius.